Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another insane day. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all feeling absolutely fantastic. Don't forget, for those of you who wish to secure your cryptocurrencies, Ledger is always having a number of great offers. While I do not work for Ledger, I am an affiliate, and I have an affiliate link in the description below for those of you who want to keep your newfound wealth safe. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. This has been a rumor. Apparently, it's no longer a rumor. Things are heating up in unexpected ways. All the time within this space, we seem to have a little bit of clarity from the events of the last 3 weeks, maybe even like a month. I'll say the word month at this point. We know that institutions really love Bitcoin. We've heard that institutions have been buying BTC since around 2014. There seems to have been some kind of a switch up, a change this year with the introduction of the Bitcoin ETFs within the US of A. This apparently, I was reading online and someone kind of spelled it out. It obviously has to do with something taxation wise as a large company. But also, apparently certain companies are only allowed to enter certain investments in a securitized manner. So just buying Bitcoin simply, we've seen other companies inside of companies or not publicly listed companies buying Bitcoin. But apparently certain companies are under certain classifications and are only allowed to invest in things that are securitized, such as a securitized version of Bitcoin in the form of the ETFs. The other part is that the amount of money flowing into these ETFs has been spectacular. I don't have the articles here, but what are the numbers again? Once again, what we heard before, out of 10,000 ETFs, this was the best performing ETF class on the entire planet. What was the other thing? I think out of gold ETFs in the first year, I think the Bitcoin ETFs have done, a 7x. No, it's more than a 12x of what gold did. What are the other things? There was some other metric. Best performing things ever, blah, 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 blah. And the amount of institutional money continues to rapidly flow into Bitcoin ETFs. But we also noticed something interesting around the 7th or 8th of November, if you remember. Not only were cryptocurrency prices going up, not only was Bitcoin rising quite rapidly already in price, the speculation was and is, and apparently still is that the United States is going to make some kind of a Bitcoin reserve. To be completely clear, the United States already has 200,000 Bitcoin that they've procured from other sources over the course of the last decade. However, this is meant to be an actual reserve for the country. This is ours, no one else's. We're accumulating basically to kind of have this, the word's not stronghold. I don't even know what the word would actually be there. The last few weeks, our market has kind of been dealing with a little bit of that news and what recourses are actually going to come from it. Mike Novogratz, and I'll say it this way. Mike Novogratz is probably one of the few people in the space who I don't believe is special or crazy. And that's kind of only word I can kind of find there. Even if you hear him speak, he kind of has a leveled head. If you hear a lot of the other larger famous people in the space speak, anyway. So basically, it appears that we have some kind of confirmation For those of you who don't know, the market is only going to continue getting crazier. Like, this is not going to slow down in any way, especially over the course of the next year. And I think that's something that people will have to come to terms with. I see a lot of people on Twitter who are in relative denial of what's going on. They don't really understand, or they think that things will return to normal. We've shifted in the world multiple times within this space. We've gone from being not loved to silently accumulated to being told that only criminals use Bitcoin to being told that Bitcoin was great. Bitcoin's awesome. Bitcoin is a new form of gold. And now we've been thrust into like the far, far future. And we are witnessing the beginning of what is known as Hyperbitcoinization. It's basically where everyone realizes, everyone, at the exact same time that they missed out. They could have gotten Bitcoin earlier, and they rapidly begin to buy as quickly as they possibly can. This leads to an everlasting sense of FOMO, because eventually Bitcoin will run out. However, companies, countries, and institutions and everyone else will come to the conclusion that they still need more as the price continues to go higher. This in turn turns into countries announcing that they are adopting Bitcoin in some form of manner. And then the public does it. The price continues to rise. Bada bing, bada boom. This news came out, and it was basically a confirmation of the things that we've been talking about. MAKEOVER, the founder and CEO of Galaxy Digital Holdings, a leading crypto investment firm listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, has signaled a significant shift in the global adoption of Bitcoin. In a post on Tuesday, Novogratz declared that countries are already purchasing Bitcoin. And I need to do like a slight move back, like I'm taking a step back because of my annoyance with the entirety of this space. Remember when we kept on hearing that Bitcoin was banned in China, and I said for 3 years Bitcoin is not banned in China? And then someone in summertime in 2024 found an article that basically said that Bitcoin wasn't banned in China. And then he wrote an article about how Bitcoin wasn't banned in China. And I made a video where I said, I wish people just listened more, because Bitcoin has never been banned in China. You can still buy it. You can still own it. You can hold it. You can sell it over the counter. What you cannot do is use it as a form of legal tender. You can also mine Bitcoin. But if you have a huge mining operation, you have to get government approval, basically, that you're not doing it near any type of small province or town where you would be siphoning off their electricity. We have known, me, you, we, us, that El Salvador has been buying and mining Bitcoin. I said before, if you think that this is the US's first foray into thinking about buying Bitcoin or mining Bitcoin, we know that they're already doing it. We've heard countless times from other countries. We heard from the central banks in the summer. Remember when everyone was like, oh my word, I can't believe it. For those of you who were not here, the Bank of International Settlements asked us a survey, a question to multiple different central banks, the people who print the money around the world. Do you own any Bitcoin? And it was a resounding yes from the majority of them who decided to answer, because the other ones did not answer. That basically solidified that we know that central banks, the people who print money, have also been buying up and mining Bitcoin. We heard before from the people who have like industrial levels of Bitcoin mining. They said whenever we try to sell some of our coins, we sell them to central banks. The banks ask us for the coins because they don't want them to go to the market. So upon hearing that MAKEOVER announced that countries are already purchasing Bitcoin, everyone was like, oh my gosh, it's happening. As opposed to being like, oh yeah, no, we knew this, because the news has constantly been this. I'm not sure why people in crypto need to hear it from like a wealthy person. We could have thousands of news articles. We could have all this like proof of these things happening, but it doesn't actually hit anyone's ear until Novogratz or Michael Saylor or Chuck Barrymore. Is that someone? Michael Jordan, any of these people, until they say something, no one seems to believe it. So now that Mike Novogratz has announced it, everyone knows for certain that governments and countries are already purchasing Bitcoin. You don't get how big this is. And I know that a lot of people don't get it. When I chat with friends, not my close friends, I know they get it. If they don't get it at this point, from me like talking their ear off, they never will. When I chat with people who are lightly in the market, have been in the market, blah, 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 whatever, and I tell them all these things. I told you before, this was in springtime. I was trying to explain to a friend about crypto. He wanted to get into investing, and I gave him the whole rundown of everything. And I waited at the end, and I was like, do you know anything about crypto? And I explained lightly to him. He's like, I still don't get it. He's like, what's the point of like digital money? And I was like, it's not digital money. I explained everything to him, and without going completely off the deep end, because I realized in that moment that we exist in our own world. Like the world of finance is a bubble, and then the bubble of crypto inside of that is also its other, like it's another completely different world. And I was explaining to him the idea of fiat currencies and inflation and gold standard, the dollar losing its valuation against Bitcoin, and this happening, and so. And I slipped, and I didn't mean to. And I got into the idea of hyperbitcoinization and countries adopting it and countries using it and countries mining it. And I looked up at him, and he looked at me like I was telling him, I was like, you know, I have wings. If you knock 3 times on your window, they'll get bigger, and I can fly us to Mars and go get a cheeseburger. Like, he looked at me like I was completely insane. And he was like, you don't think that's actually going to happen? And I was like, well, it's not about thinking that it's going to, it already currently is. He's like, no, I watch news and stuff all the time, and I have a lot of friends who are into stocks. They don't tell me anything about like global adoption of Bitcoin, or like who'd you say central banks are buying it? Like I could see that, like, it wasn't skepticism. It was like, get out of my house. Like you sound like a crazy person. So the thing that bothers me continuously is that outside of our sphere, no one understands us. Most people don't want to hear about what's going on. They don't want to hear about the trends. They don't want to hear about the money. It means nothing to them. I told you when I knew these 2 girls, all they did was want to shop. And I tried to explain to them in the simplest way. I was like, not digging through your finances, but I know you're spending between $300 to $500 a month on like clothes that you don't need. If you put half of that away within a couple of years, and at this return percent, so and so, you'd have enough to be able to, like, you know, have passive income somewhere, so that passive income would be able to pay for your shopping addiction, basically. And they were like, why would I want to put money away? And I was like, so for the future. But why can't I just use it now if I'm going to be able to use it in the future? Like, there was no connection. It sounds crazy because we understand. We get that we're going to get older, that, you know, we're not going to want to work. We're going to go to an island somewhere and vacation for 2 or 3 weeks because we have the money. It doesn't sound like a possibility to anyone because I think you haven't heard it before. You don't really understand. It's like a lot of people when they get into crypto, they you know, one toe enters the pool because they want to see how much money they can make. And then when they finally are confronted with inflation and they go to the supermarket and like, why is that 3 times the price? And then they learn about inflation, fiat going down, and asset prices going up, and Bitcoin's part of that. They go, I'm going to buy a bit more. And then they dig deeper. It takes about a year, a good 1.5 years, 2 years for people to really get it. But it's like terrifying that no one wants to. And even when people in the cryptocurrency space who've been here for years, where do you think this is going? Do you think in a year and a half, people will go, all right, the hundreds of billions of dollars we bought in Bitcoin, that's it. It was a nice experiment. No, Bitcoin's going to continue going up, and I say potentially forever. If this is the market right now, think of our market back in 2020 to 2024. Think of the market from 2024 to 2016 to 2012. Where do you think we're going to be in 2028? 2032. There's such a short-sightedness. And I mean for all of it. For all of it. Why do you think they're buying up all the crypto? Why do you think they're buying up all the Bitcoin? Why do you think there are governments doing a mad dash to buy Bitcoin? Why do you think there are central banks who own Bitcoin? Where do you think this space is going? How big do you think this is going to get? Are you not trying to be a part of it? I'm so confused all the time. And I mean all the time. I'm continuously in a state of dizziness. This space is growing so rapidly. And rich people have done an excellent job of accumulating all these coins and even getting you to not notice it. You are in this market. To not pay attention to the literal signs. Over the course of the last 3 years, we've had over 100 days on this channel where we heard about a country, an institution, a bank, a central bank buying up Bitcoin. And then it means almost nothing when I say it a lot of times. Like I said, I see people in real life when I tell them stuff. People just roll their eyes and I'm like, you're going to understand and it's going to devastate you. It's going to make you feel absolutely terrible when you realize and come to the conclusion that all of this stuff was going to happen. He said, countries are already buying BTC in high volumes. These are massive pools of capital entering the market. We're witnessing global adoption at scale, and the next rally could be massive. Buckle up. The misconception a lot of times that has been there, also part of my gigantic annoyance, comes from this idea. Remember the news since around February. It focused nearly exclusively on ETFs. What was the problem with that? The problem is that the news was trying to get you to believe that the only people who were purchasing were BlackRock, Fidelity, Grayscale, 4th, 5th, 7th, 8th, and 9th name. That was it. No one else was purchasing. Remember the first time that we had that news in March? I think this was right before the halving or something like that. The amount of Bitcoin that was being created per day, I think was 900. And there was one day where I think 13,000 or 14,000 Bitcoin had been accumulated by the ETF issuers in that one day. And I was like, what? I was like, that's 15, almost 16 times the amount that's made in one day. I was like, if they keep going on that course, there's going to be no Bitcoin left very soon. I was like, those numbers are unsustainable. You can't keep buying that much. And almost no one paid attention. Or rather, I'll say it this way. People paid attention to the number, but not to the full scope of things. Because I remember saying in multiple videos, hoping, I'm just not talking to a wall. I was like, if that's just those ETFs, there are about 20 other Bitcoin ETFs around the world who are also accumulating. What are those numbers? On those days, there are already and have been for years wallet addresses that have been buying every single day. Remember the new ones that popped up? There was the Mr. 100, which turned into Mr. 700. That was a wallet address that every day was purchasing 100 Bitcoin. At some point, it got upped to 500, then it went to 700 per day. And I was like, no one's combining all these numbers together. And then also you You and your friends and everyone else out there, like normal retail people who are always buying. And then there's also daily, like people get hung up on the 100 to 700 per day. There are wallet addresses that have been buying a Bitcoin per day for about a good 5, 6, 7 years, a literal new Bitcoin per day. And I'm like, no one's adding up all those numbers. I was like, there's something really crazy going on, like all this accumulation. And the people were like, okay, whatever, cool, that's fine. Bitcoin's going down, Bitcoin's going sideways. And I knew a couple of people who got into the market and they were like, well, Bitcoin's not moving anymore. Like, I don't think the ETFs are doing. And I'm like, it's not just the ETFs. I was like, they figured out a way to like calm down the market so they can, yeah, okay, well, all right, well, tell me when the prices go back up. And I was like, okay, cool. The numbers that we're seeing now, apparently, are these extra countries who are like, okay, we need to ramp it up even more. There are rich people all over the place who are also buying all the time. People get hung up on this idea of Michael Saylor buying 51,000 Bitcoin, which is absolutely disgustingly ridiculous. But there's still other, like, there are wallets that go up by 1,000 Bitcoin in a month. They're buying this under your nose, through your nose. I mean, as you walk around, they're accumulating all of it. It's really, and how, oh gosh, I'm so confused. In the Bloomberg interview, Novogratz elaborated on the unprecedented interest from sovereign entities. He mentioned a close associate, the person who introduced him to Bitcoin in 2013. Mike Novogratz and what's this guy's name? Poopadoop, whatever this other guy's name. They're basically kind of known for having gotten into the space very early and being excessively wealthy because of it. I don't think we've ever heard Mike Novogratz say how much Bitcoin he has, but legend goes that he has over 1 million Ether. Apparently, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it's Novogratz who said he was looking for like some, other projects to get into. What do I do? Blah, 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 blah. And apparently he met a guy in an office one time who was working with a bunch of other people. He said, what are you working on? And they were working on Ethereum. And the guy was like, do you need funding in any sort of way? And apparently legend goes that Vitalik was like, we could really use $1 million to like really get us started. And he was like, okay, I'll give you 1 million Ether for $1 million, like that kind of thing. So that's the rumor. So I can't imagine how much Bitcoin this guy, 2013, I think Bitcoin's price had risen to 1,200 and then fell back down. I think it went to $80 to $200. So around that time. Yes, he said a close associate, the person who introduced him to Bitcoin, who is currently in the Middle East, he said he's never seen anything like it. He's convincing more people to buy Bitcoin in 3 days than any time in his whole career. And there are huge pools of capital. And so we're seeing something globally. It's what I mentioned before. People keep assuming that it's just Novogratz. It's just this guy. And I mentioned this also before as well. I said something's up. We normally always hear that MicroStrategy is buying 8,000 Bitcoin, 12,000 Bitcoin, 7,000 Bitcoin, 3,000, like that kind of number. When they purchased 51,000, I said something's up. That's not a normal number at all. That is I need to get in here as quick as possible because there's literally almost nothing left. Remember the multiple other companies we heard from, the one in Tokyo. There was the other, there was Semler Scientific, and they all announced like buying like hundreds and thousands of Bitcoin. And I was like, something is actually up because those numbers never occurred before. All these people know each other. That's also something that most people don't know. All rich people, not all, you understand what I'm saying. Like they've had conversations with each other. They hang out with each other. They text each other. It's kind of like years ago. I remember this was 2017. I think there was a news report that Beyonce, Jay-Z, Paris Hilton, and a couple of other celebrities started buying Bitcoin. And I remember the news was like, how? How did they find out about this? First of all, they're not idiots. They also have like wealth managers, but also like they talk to each other. So there was also, oh gosh, there was something years ago in 2013, 14, 15, some old news where basically we found out that there were certain like sports players, which also re-picked up again in 2019. There were sports players who were getting their half of their paycheck in Bitcoin. And I was like, they're going to be insanely wealthy, and especially like back then Bitcoin prices. And then they basically were telling other players, and people were like, well, how do they know? And I'm like, they text each other. Like they have conversations. Like they're not just like, rich people don't just go home and go, I wish I had friends, but I only have money. Back to my Maserati and back to my island. No, they discuss stuff. Dude, I made $14 million last year. How'd you do that? It was nothing. I bought this new thing called Bitcoin. Yeah, the value keeps going up. You should buy some as well. Cool. I'll put 10 million in it. Something happened. And apparently, yes, behind the scenes. And even crazier, we've heard Middle East a lot of times. The rumors are it's Saudi Arabia, it's Dubai, and there's one other country. Oh gosh, what is it? That hasn't been, can't remember exactly what it is. And then there's two other ones that are apparently secret. He goes, this is a very long article. He basically goes on to say, I think it was Nashville. When Trump said out loud at a rally, we are going to start a reserve, he said that was it. He said these countries like caught notice immediately. Like there was no, let's wait and see. When you hear something like that, the leader of the most powerful nation on the planet that has ever existed, you don't sit there and go, If he had said we're going to repeg the US dollar to gold, gold's prices would have skyrocketed. If he said we're thinking of buying a whole bunch of Apple computers, the prices would have also gigantified as well. He said people in other countries, leaders heard that and they went now immediately. They already knew about Bitcoin because they were already buying it, but he said they ramped it up higher than he ever actually thought. So what we're waiting for now is basically some kind of a signal, a declaration, some kind of a law to go through that says that the US is going to actually do this. And then we're going to see $1 million Bitcoin next year. That's not even a joke. It's not a wild dream that's going to be the actual method of it. Because other countries are already front running, as we've been going over for like the last couple of weeks. But if we get confirmation that it's going to happen, all crypto is going to break loose. Like immediately. It's going to be, I can't say that word. It's going to be fudging crazy. As you might have imagined, this was very popular news. Incredibly popular news. We are going to probably continue witnessing some really weird, crazy price movement over the next couple of weeks. As I stated before from the other videos, there was an analyst who said in the next 2 weeks, the Bitcoin ETF option calls are apparently pricing in a $150,000 to a $180,000 Bitcoin. So that's going to be interesting. Oh boy, things are about to get crazy. I mean, they're already kind of crazy. Let's not pretend like things aren't already a little bit crazy. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever the heck you might be. I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.